Welcome back to another episode of the Top Attorneys of North America podcast. Today's episode dives into one of the most complex and talked about areas of law in America right now, immigration law. Joining us is attorney Joseph L. Ramirez, an experienced immigration attorney based in Bronx, New York. Mr. Ramirez has spent 25 years in the legal field where he has represented individuals navigating everything from deportation defense to asylum claims. He has helped countless individuals fight for their rights in immigration court, including those facing detention and removal, and has built a reputation for advocating on behalf of vulnerable populations seeking a better life in the United States. Today, we're going to talk not only about his journey into law, but also the realities of immigration practice, how policy changes affect real people, and what the future may hold in today's shifting political climate. Joseph, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you for having me, Sal. It's an honor and privilege to be on your podcast. I've heard a lot about your podcast and very excited to be here and eager to discuss immigration and other areas of law with you.
Excellent. I appreciate that, sir. Now, I always like to start at the beginning. I know you have a law degree from Seton Hall University School of Law. What inspired you to become an attorney?
Okay. Well, I graduated from Seton Hall, as you said, in 1994. I took the bar exam in New York immediately after graduating in 95. And because I intended to practice, but I didn't pass the bar the first time, which a lot of attorneys don't pass New York. It's a very, very difficult state to pass. So when I didn't pass, I was kind of exhausted from law school. I went during the evenings and I worked full time. I was tired from studying from the bar. So I kind of took a break from the legal field and I started working in the social service field, which is where I was working. So then I became a caseworker, a child protective worker in New York City. And I started working in family court, I removed children. And when in New York and other jurisdictions, when you remove children, you have to go to court for a court order to continue the removal. So that's how I got involved with court. My first experience with a courtroom was in family court. And my coworkers thought I kind of was an oddball and a weirdo because I actually enjoyed going to court. And the other caseworkers hated it. They just didn't like it. They didn't like the work. They didn't like waiting. They didn't like speaking to attorneys. And I mean, I just felt comfortable with court. I started having lunch with the attorneys. One attorney became a kind of a mentor. I still remember her name, Phyllis Simpson. And she kind of encouraged me to go to law school. And from there, she wrote me a recommendation. I started hanging out more with other lawyers. That the legal field just really intrigued me. I started doing a lot of research, and I got accepted into Seton Hall, and that's pretty much how I got inspired to become a lawyer and join the legal ranks.
Excellent. When did you pass the New York State Bar?
I passed the New York State Bar in 2002. So I was.
You spent a lot of time in social services.
Yes. So I passed in 2002, and I've been practicing ever since.
Yes, sir. That obviously had a big impact working in social services on your practice today.
Yes. I think, especially in my field, immigration and family law, you need some need skills dealing, with clients and with people. And my experience in the social service field gave me skills on how to deal with people, how to deal with different societies, different groups. And I think it was very, very useful.
Yes, sir. Now, obviously, dealing with the removal of children, it's an emotionally charged atmosphere. And like you said, I know you offer comprehensive legal support in other areas. I believe criminal defense, matrimonial, immigration. Was there any early cases that had a big impact on you?
Uh, as far as the immigration field,
Immigration, matrimonial. I mean, you covered the gamut. So, what do you feel? Has there been a case that did have an impact on you early on?
there was several immigration cases that had an impact. There's one particular where I represented someone and they were removed from the United States. Well, they were ordered removed. Um, and it was for a criminal conviction that was not a removable offense, but the immigration judge did order the person removed. And I did file the appeal, litigated the appeal, took several years, and the removal was reversed. And this individual got out of detention. I would remember the day that he got out and his family was there. It was very, very emotional. And, it was just due to my hard work. And it was a very, very intense case. And, that's sometimes in immigration law, you get those moments, where you feel and you believe your work has really made a difference in someone's life and their family. There have been many, but that one kind of stands out.
Yeah. What was it at that point you realized immigration law would be
Yeah.
your long-term focus?
Yes. 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 And
Uh,
and
ex-
Sal, like you said, I also do criminal and family. But with immigration law, these fields are kind of intertwined, because a lot of immigrants have criminal charges. That's the reason why they're in deportation proceedings, or that's the reason why they've been stopped. DWI is a big one. A lot of immigrants are out on the street. They don't have any documents, no green cards, but they think they can drive without without any repercussion. And unfortunately, they take a drink now and then when they drive, and they get a DWI. So it's good because I can handle the DWI. I could handle the immigration case, because I have experience in both areas. And then again, sometimes there's immigrants that are experiencing family problems. They want to get divorced from their wife. They have children. They've been taken to court for child support. The mother wants custody. The father wants visitation. So family law, criminal law, and immigration, sometimes they're just all wrapped up in one ball.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. And you said a couple of buzzwords. I mean, I keep hearing the word deportation. You said green card. For our listeners unfamiliar with immigration law, what are the most common cases that you handle today?
Okay, so the most common cases I handle are what's termed family-based immigration. And family-based immigration is when someone wants to come to this country or who's in this country and wants to become a legal permanent resident. Attorneys call it LPR, or like most people uh, say, to get a green card. By the way, green card comes from the term because the permanent resident card used to be green. And it's kind of switched. I think it's back to green now. It was kind of gray for a while. So that's where the term green card came. And so my main area is family based, where if you have a citizen spouse, for example, and you're here without documentation, if you're married to a United States citizen spouse, that spouse can petition for you before USCIS, and you can apply to adjust your status. For example, if you come in with a tourist visa and you've overstayed, but you still have status. It's called, you're not in status, but you came with status. So if you marry a spouse, you can adjust your status from kind of an overstay to a permanent resident. So I do those type of cases. I also do deportation defense. For example, if you have been detained or served with a notice to appear in immigration court, I will definitely be able to represent you in an immigration court. And by the way, Sal, this is very important. I am practicing in New York, but for immigration purposes, any attorney that's admitted in a state or a federal court can represent anyone in the 50 states.
Hmm.
So if you have a listener, say, listening from San Francisco, Florida, I could represent you. Now, travel fees, that we would have to discuss, of course, hotel fees, but I practice in many different jurisdictions, Boston, Connecticut, and kind of just stayed in the East Coast. I've gone to Florida, to Miami Immigration Court. So I can represent you no matter where you are. And now also not most, since COVID, um, a lot of the hearings are virtual. So I can represent a client, say in Utah, theoretically, or you know, and if the case is heard virtually, I can appear from my office and represent that individual. So I do family based, I do deportation defense, I do naturalization. That's a positive area where you got your green card, you have all the requisites, and you want to become a citizen. I could help you become a citizen of the United States. Uh, I do a lot of different areas, and but those are mainly deportation, family based, naturalization. Any criminal, if you have a criminal record, there are a lot of waivers. Waivers are kind of applications that will allow you to still become a resident or a citizen if the immigration authorities say, that you prove you've been rehabilitated or you haven't committed any crimes. They'll kind of, waiver means they'll kind of excuse that act or that crime, and they will let you be processed as a resident or becoming a citizen.
Yes, sir. I had to be honest with you. I did not know that even though you're only you pass the bar only in New York, that you can practice in any other state.
Yes, solely for immigration. Solely for immigration. That's unique with immigration. Other areas of law, criminal law, each attorney needs to be admitted in that particular state.
I believe
Criminal law.
pro hoc vice or something like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But immigration law is kind of peculiar in that sense, because it's a federal, it's a federal agency, the Department of Justice and the Immigration Executive Immigration Court. So it's federal. So as long as you're admitted in a state and in one federal court, you're okay.
Excellent, excellent. Now, obviously, immigration is one of the most politically charged topics in the country right now. How does that affect your day-to-day work? And I want to go back to something you said earlier when going through the naturalization process. If they have a criminal background or a criminal record, there's waivers. Has that changed from, let's say, the Biden administration to the Trump administration?
Yes. It's like you said, it's very politically charged, but immigration law has always been politically charged. And the reason for that, Sal, is because the immigration law is the INA, Immigration and Naturalization Act, which is an act by Congress. And immigration law is governed by congressional statutes, presidential proclamations. So we have different administration. We have, say, the Democrats controlling Congress, Republicans controlling Congress. So it's always going to be some politics regarding immigration. However, this present administration has made it extremely political. And I think that's due to the number of presidential executive orders under this administration, which have just broken records. There's been no other administration with the number of presidential executive orders. Now, Sal, people out there, presidential executive orders are just orders made by one person, the president, without any congressional approval. And that has become a problem because a lot of these presidential orders have been appealed to the courts and they've been overturned. So it's been very confusing for me, for other lawyers, because we have to, no matter what, Sal, I have to read, say, a presidential order that comes out tomorrow. I have to analyze it. To me, it may seem stupid. It doesn't seem, it seems contrary to law, but it's still something that I have to be cognizant of. I have to tell my clients. And that's why it's become very politically charged. Also, this administration has set to, quote, deport 1 million people a year. I believe that was the actual quote by the administration. And, they haven't even reached that level, this administration or the first administration. Now, Sal, let me tell you something very interesting about deportations. Sal, if I asked you which president had the most number of deportations during a term?
I know. I believe it's Obama.
Correct. A lot of people, I tell them they're kind of shocked. Just to give you a number, Sal, during President Obama's first administration from 2009 to 2012, in those 4 years, he deported a total of 1,589,451 people in 4 years. Just to give you a sense of that. Fiscal year 2012, that was his last year in his first term, because remember, he served 2 terms.
Mm-hmm.
His last year in his first term, President Obama broke a record from George Washington. He, in that year, almost 500,000 people, 449,000 were deported. That comes out to 1,123 a day. After that year, someone came out with the name Deporter in Chief. And that has stuck. Now, this administration said they were going to beat that record, but they have not. So, this is just what you're saying. It's kind of politically charged, and that's where we're at today. It's very difficult to speak about immigration without getting into the politics.
Yeah, I mean, but there's obviously stark differences between, the administrations. And believe me, I listen to both sides. I like to consider myself, down the middle. If someone on the left has something good to say, yes. If someone on the right has something good to say, I say, let's listen to them. But it's just been so polarized. And you watch the news reports, and the right's argument is that under Obama's administration, you had the children in cages. Trump's administration is obviously ICE enforcement agents. and it's just been crazy. But um, my point is, I mean, there's a lot of propaganda that does get spread, and this current administration's argument was that we're only going to be removing the bad guys, the criminals.
Yeah.
But, my abuela is living in fear. She's scared to come out of the house. Do you think that that's the biggest fear that you have amongst your clients now?
Yes, yes. The concept and the feeling of fear is so prevalent. Like you said, I mean, I know people that don't want to leave their house. I know a client that he was facing deportation, and uh, right now he's on the verge of being mentally committed because he's just freaking out. He's been diagnosed with all these conditions, and this has had a very negative effect, this fear. But Sal, I want to go back to what you said about the president administration saying they're going after the worst of the worst. I think that's what you said, right?
Yeah, the bad guys.
The bad guys. Okay. Now, Sal, last month, March 2026. This is, by the way, I get my facts from a site called Track. It's the Transactional Clearinghouse, very well noted organization that's based in Syracuse, out of Syracuse University. Their facts are pretty much on point. So last month, only 2% of the immigration court filings were based on criminal activity of immigrants. Only 2%. So more than 60% of the immigrants that are in detention now, more than 60%, I got the number here, have no criminal record. They've never been arrested. The people that have been arrested, and maybe these 2% that I said, have criminal records, but it's stuff like shoplifting, DWI, misdemeanors. So, like I said, I don't like to get into politics that much, but the facts, when you look at facts, and even in Department of Homeland Security's own records support this, that people that are being arrested, if they're not the worst of the worst, if you say the worst of the worst are people with crimes and that have committed murder, that's not supported by the evidence.
That's crazy. Let me ask you though, under
And
the
that's why
deport,
people are scared. That's why you got grandma scared. Grandma never committed anything, no crimes, and never been arrested. This is why you have people that are scared.
yeah, my wife's family are immigrants. They came to the U.S. from South, pardon me, from South America. They became naturalized. And in fact, my mother-in-law voted for Trump because she's an avid churchgoer. And she's pro-life, and that's what pushed her vote his way. But even her feelings have changed because she's active in the church, and she has noticed that the church attendance has dropped. Nobody's leaving the house. And I want to ask, when we spoke about Obama, the deporter in chief, do you have statistics on the type of people, or were there more criminals deported under Obama than there have been under Trump?
That's a very, very good question, Sal. And I do have facts that more people with criminal records were deported under Obama. Now, that's due to one particular policy he had, and I remember this policy very, very well. It was called the Secure Communities Program, and what that program did was it allowed state and federal courts to have access and exchange access with ICE and immigration. So ICE and immigration would know when someone gets arrested, when they're about to come out, and they would go directly to the jail and pick these people up. So that's why you had cooperation with the courts, criminal courts, and ICE, and that's why you got a lot more people that were deported that had criminal records. That program is no longer in existence. It was under a lot of controversy because state courts are really not supposed to cooperate with the federal government, and it's going back and forth now. Trump has a kind of a new program, uh, but yes, to answer your questions, under Obama, more people were deported that had criminal records. Yeah,
Such an interesting topic.
yeah,
So
it is.
interesting. It really is.
And if you
Thank you.
if you listen to the propaganda, though, like you said, you would think otherwise. So it's really important to have a knowledge base and look at the facts instead of looking at rhetoric and propaganda, that comes out of CNN or MSNBC or whatever.
Sure. Or Fox News, Newsmax. Yeah, I get it. But it's tough to decipher what's real, what's propaganda, because
Yeah.
even the administration has built a website that is just filled with just criminals that they've deported. But
Yeah.
obviously, they omit the other 98% that don't have criminal records that have been deported. So,
Yeah.
if you're, a MAGA fan, or, a fan of the administration, or, just a fan of deportation, and, of course there should be reform, but you're going to look at that website and you're going to be like, okay, yeah, we're doing the job. But obviously the statistics that you laid out clearly says otherwise.
There's one more interesting fact about that. Like I said, I have statistics and records here, but these stop at fiscal year 2024. The reason for that is because this administration now has stopped, they have told their Department of Homeland Security to stop publishing these statistics. As a result, there's several lawsuits that are asking the courts to compel ICE to start releasing statistics like they did. So, we have a big gap now. This is the last example I'll give you. The administration said that in 2025, this is the administration, that they had over 577,000 deportations, which would beat Obama's record. Here's the problem. It hasn't been substantiated by any facts.
Yeah.
So that's the world we're living in. So
Yeah, it seems to be a common theme. They don't want to have the jobs report, unemployment report.
yeah, that's a good one. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's give some advice, some public awareness to our listeners. What should people know before hiring an immigration attorney, and what are the biggest mistakes that immigrants make when trying to handle these cases?
Okay, so one big, huge mistake, especially among Spanish-speaking immigrant population, is there are a bunch of people. They call notarios. In Spanish, they call notarios. People believe that someone is an immigration lawyer, and they're not. There's a lot of people out there presenting themselves to be lawyers, and they're not. And they do a good job of convincing, Spanish speaking people that they're lawyers, but they're not. And Sal, you don't know how many people, I mean, almost on a monthly basis, I get people coming in saying they were defrauded by a notario, by someone who they thought was an immigration lawyer, and they gave them thousands and thousands of dollars, and they go back and they're no longer in that office. Their number has been disconnected. Family member doesn't know anything about the person they referred. So one big suggestion I would give to anyone looking at for an immigration attorney is look at your state bar. Every state bar should have a list or access to who an attorney is. In New York, you could go online and my name is there. I was admitted 2002. It has my office. It has what jurisdictions I practice in. Look for someone that's admitted. You don't want someone who's not admitted because they really can't help you. Second, I would say have a consultation with that person. See how you feel. See his office. How do you feel comfortable with him? To ask him or her for his rates. Every attorney has different rates. Some charge hourly. Some charge a flat fee. Ask your friends because this is your life that you're going to be handling. You're going to be having an attorney handling that, and you want someone that is knowledgeable, that has experience, that knows the local immigration courts and attorneys, and someone you can afford.
Hmm.
So that's what I would tell most people is watch out for those notarios.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, such a vulnerable population, and
yeah,
if there's a buck to be made, there's always going to be somebody to prey upon them, unfortunately.
right.
Let me ask you this, because I know that there's specific laws, there's specific requirements, especially when it comes to naturalization, a number of years that you have to be, in the country. How important is timing in immigration filings and applications?
Very important. Very, very important. Um, Especially with naturalization. As you said, you have to have. Uh, I'm going to tell you one area where people get really crossed up. Um, to become a citizen of the United States, you have to spend a certain amount of time after you became a resident in the United States. You have to spend a certain amount of it's 2.5 years physically in the United States. Okay, but also you have to have uh, permanent residence. So there's people that have had the number of days, okay, but at the same time they've traveled a lot, okay, and if you travel enough, the immigration service can say you've abandoned your permanent resident status. And when they come up with that, you have to prove that you have had sufficient ties with the United States. Say you have to prove you had a house, you rent a rental agreement, you had a job, you have a family. So it's very important, the timing and what you're where you're at, what you're doing, and you need an immigration lawyer to really go through that, And when you decide actually to file for citizenship, if you've been married to if you've been married to a spouse who's a U.S. citizen, you don't have to wait 5 years. You can do it after 3 years. So there's the timing aspect too, And if you file, say after 2 years, you're going to get denied because you haven't done the 3 years. So timing is very, very important.
Yes, sir. And I think that's a big misconception that the general public has, because the news reports that I see is that these people are crossing the border and they become citizens and they get their benefits. And that doesn't seem to be the case.
No, no. Yeah, and again, I have people coming to my office, like you said, they've just crossed the border and they come into my office and they say, so when can I get health insurance? When can I get health insurance and Social Security benefits? They just crossed the border, but and it's just what people say. It's misinformation. You have people that cross the border. They cross the border as a result of people smuggling them. These smugglers. And these smugglers tell them anything. Oh, you're going to cross the border, then you go to Social Security, you get a benefit, you're going to get a job, and they believe it.
Yeah.
They believe
What are
it.
they?
They just
Are they? What, are they called coyotes? Is that what they're called?
Yes, yes, yes. The coyotes, they kind of brainwash these people, and like you say, it's a vulnerable population, very vulnerable. They will believe anything. They believe that America is heaven, for lack
Yeah.
of a better word, and they have reason to want to believe that because you got to remember, Sal, these people are coming from third world countries where they're starving, they have no food, they have no work, there's no opportunities. They're living in sickness, they're living in unemployment. So just the word America to them means so much more, and it means a better way of life, which it is a better way of life, but it's just the misconceptions
Yeah.
that people get.
Yeah, that's an argument that I have with some people as well. When we discuss this topic, if the roles were reversed and America was the third world country, you wouldn't want to go to, El Salvador or Nicaragua or another third world country if you knew that you had a chance to provide a better life for you and your family. Of course you wouldn't. Of
Yeah.
course you wouldn't. Yeah, and I want to ask something else because we see a lot of it, and detainment, um, and especially with the ICE officials. What should someone do immediately if a loved one is detained? Is it true that they don't give access, or are they giving access to attorneys, family members now?
Okay, so if someone is detained, first of all, they should have access to telephone calls in the detention center, and that's generally the rule. If they don't, something is not going as it should. Also, uh, attorneys can contact people in immigration detention now virtually. All they have to do is file what's called a G-28. So if a family member contacts an attorney, contacts me and says, my loved one is in Plattsburgh Detention Center, whatever, I get the information. I tell them to get as much information I need. The number one piece of information that everyone should have is what's called an A number, which means an alien number. It begins with the letter A. It's either 8 or 9 digits. It's social security number for immigrants. You have to know that. That's unfortunately, they go by numbers, they don't go by names in immigration. So as long as you have that number, I can track that person down and I can set up communication with them. Um, and they should know, they should know their rights. There's no, say in criminal law, there's a right to an attorney if you're arrested. A lot of people don't know that. Under current law, there is no right to an attorney for someone that gets detained.
Hmm.
The family member would have to look for an attorney. Um, so it's very important if you get detained to have someone out there. It could be a friend, anyone, to try to get an attorney and to try to get you a bond, even though now bonds are virtually vanishing with this administration, um, or to try to get you some type of relief where you can get out of detention.
Yes, sir. A lot of pearls of wisdom there. That's
Yeah.
something very important for our listeners to know. This may be an unfair question because obviously immigration law is so dynamic, but where do you see immigration law heading in the next 5 to 10 years?
In the next 5 to 10 years. Okay, we're 2026.
Yeah, so
Um,
that'll put us in the 2030s. Wow.
Again, it's what I said at the very outset of the podcast. Immigration law, policy, and law is set by Congress and is set by the presidential administration. So, to answer your question, it would depend in the next 5 to 10 years which party would have control of Congress, what party would be the president. Because again, you can have a president from a party, but the Congress can be controlled by the opposing party, and that has happened a lot. So now, this administration, we have a president from a party and we have Congress from the same party, but ironically, it's not working like it should. So, my answer to that is if this administration continues under the same party, we're going to see more deportations. Uh, we're going to see, my prediction, Sal, is that asylum, the grant of asylum, will practically not exist in the next 5 or 10 years. It's becoming totally dismantled. I don't think asylum is going to exist if the present administration continues. We're going to see more deportation numbers. We're going to see less family based immigration. And we're just going to see less immigration as a whole. Because as a whole, the total number of immigrants coming in legally or illegally has dropped to an all-time low. We're not getting people like the old days where people got people from Ireland, from Italy. My parents came from Puerto Rico. We had people coming in. Now we have more people leaving this country than actually having immigrants. Now, so that's if that party remains in power. If the other party somehow manages to regain control of the presidency or Congress, it's going to take a long time to undo these policies. So if that party gets into power, I don't see much of a big change. So, it just depends on who's going to be at the top and who's going to be controlling. And Sal, I didn't even speak about the courts. The courts, Supreme Court, the federal courts play a big role in interpreting the law. As I said, there's like thousands of lawsuits every day.
Yeah, what was the last big one? Birthright citizenship, I believe.
Yeah,
Was
yeah, and they're all responses to the president's proclamations and the law. And we have more federal judges and more federal prosecutors from the administration's party. So again, it's just the branches of government: the judicial, the executive, and Congress. It depends where they're leaning to.
yeah.
Which again, it shouldn't be that way, Sal. We keep going back to this politics. It should be laws that the people want, that are legislated by people they elect. Judges are supposed to be impartial. Um, Very difficult to be impartial, but nowadays we've just seen an extreme impartiality, in my opinion.
Yeah, well,
Um,
if you speak out, you get a tweet written about you. You
right,
get a nickname made, and that's it.
right.
You're branded.
Yeah, I think this country with immigration and other areas, we just need to start being less polarized, start talking like human beings in a room without getting angry and calling someone a name. That's not productive. We have to start solving these problems, or it's going to affect all of us, even non-immigrants.
That's
It's
right.
going to affect America as a whole.
Yeah, economically, GDP,
Right,
the tax-based contribution,
right,
economic growth. I'm with you. I mean,
yeah.
definitely words to live by. I mean, I love your passion, Joseph. I mean, you obviously love
But
what you
not to
do.
show it too much.
Yeah. What keeps you motivated after so many years in practice?
It's helping, like I told you about that story with the guy that it's just helping people, and it's very rare, to be honest, that you get that case uh, that really hits you. But I have had them, and cases like that just keep me going, and that's what it is, man. Helping people with
Good for
their
you.
problems.
Great answer. Let me ask you, Joseph, for our listeners interested in maybe retaining your services, or if they have questions, what's your best phone contact number, your best email? How should they go about reaching out to you?
Okay, so I'm in the Bronx, New York. The best phone number is 718-690-3960. That number you can call 24 hours a day, and someone will pick it up. Not necessarily me at 3 in the morning, but someone will pick it up. Someone will pick up that phone. My email is joseph@jlramirez.net. That's my email. I'm on Facebook, and I'm not on Twitter, but now I'm on Sal's podcast, and I'm going to go worldwide now with you, Sal.
Excellent. I'll be sure to highlight your number, your email for you. And I have to say, Joseph, this has been an incredibly insightful conversation because, you said it yourself, immigration law, it's not just about statutes, procedures, it's about people,
Right.
families, futures. And your work highlights just how critical, strong legal advocacy is in navigating a system that can often feel obviously overwhelming, uncertain. And I really have to say that I appreciate you sharing your experience, your perspective, and the important work you're doing on behalf of your clients. So I want to give you a big thank you for appearing with us and talking about this very important topic with us today.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for allowing me the time, the pleasure. And as I said earlier, Sal, I was a little nervous, but you made me feel comfortable. And I mean, this has been a great experience. And I truly want to thank you for having me on your podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Top Attorneys podcast. The Top Attorneys celebrates the achievements of leading attorneys across the nation. To be featured, send a message or visit www.topattorneys.us.